This image of the two of them perfectly explains what the two Spains are. Don't forget, the Spain of the right and the left no longer exists. The eternal struggle of the 19th or 20th century. No, now there is the decent Spain and the indecent one, the one that works hard and the one that steals, the one that obeys the law and the one that tramples on it. Those two Spains maintain a difficult balance because the worst of them is in power.
The electoral census is managed by Babel, a company convicted of fraud and cheating the state. Then, the provisional count and the IT management of the whole process is handled by Indra, another company also convicted of fraud and cheating the state. The management of postal votes is handled by Correos, a company that lies, as has been proven, claiming that they, according to Law 10, had nothing to do with the postal voting system. However, the information and reports from the UKO state exactly what they are. The electoral system is managed by the worst.
Moroccans, due to their constitution and their religious dependence, have a dual loyalty with an inalienable allegiance to the Sultan. They can acquire a nationality, they can serve in the Spanish army, in the American one, on the moon, wherever they want. They still maintain that loyalty. That is to say, they can't be trusted.
I found out which company did that desecration work on the esplanade of the Basilica of the Holy Cross of the Valley of the Fallen. And I went to see the owner of the company, and I found a frightened man, together with his family, his wife and his son, his wife and his son. It took him a bit of effort to open the door and tell me what had happened, and he told me, and he said he had been deceived.
It's the same phenomenon. We are returning to a moral degradation of the West. We are destroying the pillars of the West out of absurd cowardice, because in addition, it harms us when we look the other way. It harms others when we allow injustices to be committed against them, and we are causing Western civilization to fall, to break apart from every angle. We have to be generous and brave again.
Castillon Confidential
By Albert Castillon. Welcome. How are you, confidentials? How are you doing? Thank you for being here. This channel keeps growing and I appreciate it. We don't like booms, we like stairs. Little by little, no rush, but without stopping. On the way to 400,000 followers and then 500,000, moving forward to be more and to better defend freedom in this, which is your trench. Here, some say this battle is divided between good and evil. I don't know, maybe that's excessive. What I'm sure of is that this struggle in Colombia, in Peru, in Venezuela, in Cuba is divided between decent and indecent people. Between those who can't make ends meet and those who wall up their houses with bills. Between those who get up at 6 in the morning and through their effort make it to the end of the month, and those who live off the effort of others and believe that public money belongs to no one. That division without a doubt exists and we are suffering from it. In Spain, where a full government claims to be progressive and to care about the people, while it robs us and makes us poorer for the past 8 years. President Sanchez's wife has been charged with multiple crimes. She was before the judge a few hours ago and went in and out of the courthouse, as you can see. 2 unmarked police cars through the garage with bodyguards, a total of 12 bodyguards, including those inside and outside. They have increased the number of bodyguards since the journalist Vito Quiles decided to film her on the street. Who would think of that? Please, she is untouchable like the Holy Spirit. Well, the truth is that presidents of the Community of Madrid, like Esperanza Aguirre or the vice president of the government, Rodrigo Rato, have gone to that court and they entered through the main door and on foot. Those privileges of this so-called socialist and progressive caste I don't know why they're allowed to do that, because they get so many threats, because they do such a bad job that they could have a security problem. Or simply because they like the sewers and the underworld, they feel much more at home when they're underground. The truth is that when it was over, after almost 4 hours, Begoña Gomez came out again with her security detail from the garage. But Judge Peinado didn't. The one who judged her was waiting for the bus. This scene was recorded by my colleague Bertrand Ndongo, who isn't allowed into Congress because he asks the interesting questions. This scene is a symbol. This scene perfectly shows who is who. The one who has studied for more than 10 years, the one who has worked hard, the one who has been a municipal secretary. He has gone through countless small courts until now, at the end of his professional career, reaching the investigating court at Plaza Castilla. He will turn 73 in a few months. He takes the bus, by the way, without a single bodyguard. Do you see any bodyguard protecting him? He doesn't need protection. If they could, and many knew who he is, they would hug him in the street. Maybe that's why Begoña Gomez has bodyguards. To prevent her from being spat on or insulted, which would be the natural reaction from someone who has been robbed by another, right? Peinado and Begoña Gomez have very different lives, not just in terms of age difference, but in everything. Judge Peinado's mother wanted him to become a priest. She was a very devout woman. Begoña Gomez's father was not. He immediately saw that she would follow in the family's footsteps. Gay saunas and brothels, and he put Begoña Gomez in charge of keeping the books for some saunas and changing the towels. He didn't care that she did that job. Judge Peinado earns about 5,000 euros a month. No one even knows about Begoña Gomez. She was already a millionaire thanks to her family's saunas. And now she's become even richer with her shady deals and those of her husband, the president of the government. She's surrounded by bodyguards like Sara Santolala, an activist agitator who blesses Sanchez's regime, or like Lere Diaz, the sewer dweller. Sanchez's friends need bodyguards because they can't walk down the street. They're insulted at every turn. Honest people don't need bodyguards. This image of both of them perfectly explains what the two Spains are. Don't forget, there is no longer a Spain of the right and the left, the eternal struggle of the 19th or 20th century. No, now there is decent Spain and indecent Spain. The one that works hard and the one that steals. The one who obeys the law and the one who tramples on it. Those two Spains maintain a difficult balance because the worst one is in power. The worst one governs, controls the budget, controls the prosecutor's office, the judges, the police. And the other, Judge Peinado, you or me, we are the civil society with very few things to hold on to when there are twists and turns. And there are many twists and turns. Look, today the former president of the government of Spain, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, is facing a judge for the first time. It had never happened in the history of Spain that a former president under investigation was summoned to testify. It's not a minor offense, it's 6 major crimes. He is accused of criminal organization, influence peddling, money laundering, smuggling, document forgery, and tax evasion. And there are what they call regime journalists, the worst of my profession, who excuse him. They are the same ones who accused Camps, the former Valencian president, because he had been given 10 suits as gifts. They don't forgive the 10 suits. The millions in jewelry, yes, because they're from their own side. Decent Spain and indecent Spain, the one that works and strives and the one that lives off commissions, narco states, and other people's oil. This is very simple, gentlemen. Think about which side you're on and how we have to fight so that the good side, the right side, wins this battle.
Castillón Confidential by Albert Castillón.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 4 years since this adventure began, this program that you're watching on this YouTube channel, we have questioned the legality of the electoral results in Spain, that there is alleged electoral fraud. We have done this by interviewing managers, experts, people who have worked at Indra, and all roads lead to the same place. Yes, there is allegedly fraud, but no one investigates it, at least not thoroughly. With the grandchildren law, with the massive regularization of immigrants and the massive naturalization of others, and with the increased electoral roll, that possibility multiplies more than ever since Sánchez has been in power. But there's something that our colleague Gabriel Araujo has discovered. What, gentlemen, has he offered the management of the electoral roll in Spain to a man from the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party and to a company that has already been reported and convicted for fraud in the census and other tasks? What we're saying is very serious. We're talking about a company that's in charge of the maintenance, development, software, applications, and management of the electoral roll. And as I said, that's being put into action and placed in the hands of a card-carrying socialist. Gabriel Araujo, welcome. Computer expert, how are you?
How are you, Albert Castillon? Greetings to all the confidenciales. Thank you for the invitation.
I think it's a scandal. Who is that person?
Well, his name is Jose Alberto Perez Cueto, and he is a former socialist deputy from the Principality of Asturias. Then also, after leaving parliament, he went on to hold administrative posts within the socialist government of Asturias. And specifically, he was dedicated to contracting different services and was even involved in 2 cases of corruption, the Maria case specifically. But anyway, he has been acquitted. He hasn't even been investigated in that matter regarding the issue of issuing a false invoice. And, well, consequently, after leaving the Asturian Public Administration, he became part of this board of directors of Babel, which is the company awarded the contract for managing the electoral roll by the INE.
Babel Information Systems. You are seeing the company's logos and you have seen the face of Jose Alberto Perez Cueto. It seems that Cueto holds the position of Director of the Public Sector for Spain at Babel and is listed as an authorized representative, meaning he is the fixer. But the majority owner of this company, Babel, is a fund called Mubadala Capital based in Abu Dhabi. To me, all of this is very strange. Are we giving the management of the electoral census to a card-carrying socialist and to a fund from the Arab Emirates?
Well, first we have to focus on the fact that this is a typical case of a revolving door. I mean, a politician within the administration who awarded contracts to the private sector and then moves to the private sector, like you said, right? Making that specific bridge. But the most serious thing, Albert, is that this company, Babel Information Systems, was also convicted of fraud and scam against the state, together with Indra, which we also know manages electronically only the votes of Spaniards. So we have here a huge scandal in the sense that the Spanish electoral system is run by these 2 companies. It depends on these 2 companies, both convicted of fraud and cheating the state. I want to read to you specifically the resolution of the National Commission on Markets and Competition, in which it points out that Babel had actually partnered with Indra so that it would be awarded the contract. And then it says on page 137 of this sanction that Babel participated in other practices aimed at falsifying and limiting competition, such as submitting cover bids in collusion with other companies among the 11 that it calls the IT cartel. So really, this is absolutely scandalous. How is it possible that the National Institute of Statistics gives them the contract, especially for the voter rolls in the context we're in, which we're denouncing. And there is great public alarm, even at the political level, about the issue of the instrumentalization of mass nationalizations, express regularizations, and all the clear manipulation that is being done to the electoral census, right?
Look, never before, like in these upcoming general elections, which are supposed to take place next summer, has the census ever been changed so much. And they just put someone they absolutely trust in charge of managing the census. I'm told it's Babel. He was also in charge of managing cybersecurity for the Congress of Deputies with a contract worth more than €1 million. Or for the Ministry of Social Security and Migration in contracts totaling 4.2 million euros. A company convicted along with Indra, both are in charge of the electoral census. Where is the opposition? How much time do they have to appeal this, Gabriel?
That's the question we're asking ourselves. They have 15 days to appeal according to the technical specifications and the formalization of the contract that was published last Friday in the Boletín Oficial del Estado. I have already appealed this decision because we can't wait for the politicians any longer, my friends. Here, civil society has to take action because we only have ourselves. Here, more than ever, the phrase is confirmed, only the people save the people. And here, the professionals who are involved, professionals like you from the field of journalism, when we see that they can be counted on the fingers of one hand or even fewer who are concerned about electoral transparency. And the professionals, there are also very few of us who have stepped forward. So here we have to take action. And that's what I've done. And I filed that administrative appeal against this contract award, which, by the way, administratively, you can't imagine how many holes it has. It's not possible that this company was awarded the contract, especially since it was the only company that applied and it had some huge flaws, like not meeting one of the main conditions of the contract, which was the modernization and migration of the current system to the Java system. They had rated this as deficient, and yet instead of declaring the tender void, they awarded it, even though technically it didn't even meet these conditions, right?
In other words, this company had to be the awardee of the electoral census no matter what. The fact that a company like this, under suspicion and convicted in the hands of someone from the party, is in charge of developing software to supposedly improve electoral management, who oversees that software, that management?
The thing is, it's outsourced. The INE completely outsources all the management of the electoral census to this company. But these, the conditions, the specifications, even the technical specifications document, I've gone through it completely. Because logically, in order to be able to appeal it, and it gives them tremendous powers. And there really isn't any control. It's all about trust in the company because they can also alter things. They allow them through the app that this same company will develop to alter the electoral roll and correct whatever they consider necessary. And most importantly, they will be directly linked, as stated in the technical specifications, with the consulates. In other words, they will receive that privileged information about the electoral roll from the consulates. So the whole operation is completely outsourced to this company, and that's why I have requested precautionary measures to suspend this contract, so that those pieces of evidence are preserved, so that any kind of alteration of the electoral roll can be forensically preserved before this is put into operation, because it's really concerning that the awarded company does not meet the conditions for which it was hired, right?
Notice that we always believed the grandchildren's law had a catch, that they didn't expect everyone to vote, but rather that they controlled the vote. There was a listener, some insider, who said, these people who switch the mailbags on the return flight with the mail, maybe it's not even necessary, just putting a company that appeared in the census like Babel is enough, right?
But let me describe the entire electoral process of the Spanish electoral system to you. The electoral census is managed by Babel, a company convicted of fraud and cheating the state. Then the provisional count and the IT management of the entire process are handled by Indra, another company also convicted of fraud and cheating the state. The management of postal votes is handled by Correos, a company that lies, as has been proven, claiming that they, according to the law of Diez, had nothing to do with the postal voting system. And yet, The information and reports from ALCO state exactly the opposite. And moreover, in the emails themselves, Lady Diaz repeatedly contacted the Central Electoral Board to manage the postal vote. So we have here a complete lack of integrity in a system, in an absolutely critical phase of the rule of law, which is the electoral system, a system managed by the worst. I mean, how is it possible that the opposition here stays silent, stays calm, unless they're holding back and accepting this whole system because they want to use it themselves in the future? That's why really we as citizens have to mobilize very actively against this, right?
I'm with you. Civil society has to step forward. Don't wait for the parties to do it anymore. And congratulations on filing that appeal, and I hope the judges respond to your appeal that you filed just a few hours ago. I don't care if no online outlet talks about it, if no party comments on it. We are making this case a banner to try to stop this new way of attacking freedom and the electoral fraud that continues to grow in Spain. Araujo, a big hug, stay strong.
We're waiting for you at the House of Sparkling Water, Vichy Catalan.
You just heard it with Araujo, the company that the government has trusted to control the electoral census, to do and undo as it pleases. It's a company that has been sanctioned and fined for forming a cartel of interests with other companies, including Indra, and it's run by a former PSOE congressman. Honestly, with the clues I've given you, we're telling the story here, and then some digital outlets and some colleagues join in. It's so clear that they're going to look for electoral fraud when they have to hold elections. It's so clear. From the grandchildren law to mass naturalization to calling elections in the middle of summer to get help from the postal service, nobody watches the mailbags, nobody opens the envelopes with the records from each polling station. What? I don't know. It seems like we have more interest in defending the rule of law. A handful of journalists and IT specialists are more interested than those who actually lose the elections, PP and Vox. Isn't this action being taken against them, right? Francisco Vendala, Lieutenant Colonel, how are you? Should we send in the army?
Well, I think it's about time that the Army, the armed forces, review Article 8 of the Constitution. That they defend the Constitution, that they defend what's left of the rule of law, and that they realize we're already in the final stretch. Albert, I'm sorry to say it, but we're already in the final stretch of a self-coup by Pedro Sanchez's government. Cornered as he is, he has no other choice, and he's moving forward because this guy doesn't hold back at all.
And what stands out,
as Albert has made very clear, as always, is that the opposition not only doesn't oppose, they don't stand against anything. But we can already say, if this happens more than 2 hours after the exclusive, that they are going to be accomplices, Albert, accomplices in this self-coup by Sanchez.
and that's extremely serious. If Sanchez is where he is, it's because there's no real opposition in front of him.
No hay enfrente nadie de verdad. No hay.
Start thinking about it, Albert. Whoever wants to remove him democratically from La Moncloa, and
Then there is also
to think about something else
thing.
important.
Let's see.
The head of state has the obligation, the constitutional mission, to also oversee the proper functioning of the institutions, of all of them, of the president, of the government.
Of the government as well.
Let's hope we're not dealing with another accomplice as well, because honestly, Spain is in a critical situation. We're experiencing something we haven't seen in 50 years and half a century of history, Albert.
And this one is going all out.
Because he's a wounded wild boar, Albert, and we know how dangerous that is. What can't be understood anymore and can't be
excused
is the, let's say, opposition, in quotes, Pepe and Vox.
Because they're not stupid. You can't
give them the benefit of the doubt, nor can we be half-hearted with them. If they don't do it now, if they don't do what they have to do, in the face of what is already a fraud,
prácticamente cantado.
Then we'll have to believe everything they say in Parliament is a lie, that they're in agreement and want to stay in opposition, and dividing up the pie that unfortunately is us, the citizens.
Sanchez keeps sending the same message that he wants to stay in power. Listen.
Democracy is like this. Parliamentary democracy works this way. There is a Congress with a difficult, complex parliamentary majority, no doubt about it, which will require all of us to negotiate until the last minute, but that gets things done. And therefore, we are going to continue governing until the year 2027, and in 2027 also. To answer Juan Carlos's question about what will happen, let me tell you now. The left-wing parties will run again, and we will win again. And we will keep governing.
And we will keep governing for the rest of our lives, right? That's what he forgot to say. Elma Sainz is the government spokesperson. This message, Sanchez has said, should be spread everywhere so that the public starts to get it in their heads that there will be Sanchez for decades. Listen, Elma Sainz a few hours ago.
This government has not stopped working at any time throughout this term, and we continue with our sights set on 2027 and beyond 2027. That is good life.
Until 27 and beyond. What does beyond mean? Even if they don't vote for you or twist the result like on July 23, which, by the way, the PP and Vox accepted the electoral result without investigating anything, when now we know all the lies that were behind it. Let's see, this isn't a coincidence. Pilar Almagro from Colombia. How are you, dear friend?
Hi, how are you, Albert? Francisco Confidenciales? Well, I'm very worried.
You've already experienced this in Colombia, just like in Venezuela and other places, right?
We're living it every day. I mean, for example, here in Colombia, Cepeda has been preparing this for 60 years. 60 years. I mean, his parents, both his father and mother, were already communists and have been paving the way. But it's the same all over the West. I mean, we have cultural Marxism in the West. The kids coming out of universities are indoctrinated in this. I mean, myself, not long ago, I wanted to talk about capitalism and freedom. And they told me I couldn't use that title because it wasn't allowed. I mean, it was disapproved. What is Sanchez doing? Exactly, as you said, what he wants is to stay in power indefinitely. And let's not forget that he is the president of the Socialist International. I mean, he is in constant talks with all these people. And he is doing something much bolder than what is being done here or in Peru and so on, much bolder. He is taking the whole history, at least the past 60 years, and also connecting it with the future, as you are saying. That is preparing the new voters. The replacement is real, as we are seeing. And with the new voters who will mostly vote for him, he will stay indefinitely, which he also needs. Because if not, we already know where he's going to end up, behind bars.
What you're saying is tremendous. It's extremely serious. In Colombia, they're getting close. They haven't achieved it yet, but there's very little left. So that in the second round, I hope things change. Espriella and that guy Cepeda stays at home. That's a problem. Both Cepeda and his boss, Gustavo Petro, are calling people to take to the streets if they don't win. Is a social revolution expected? Yes, if they don't win.
Yes, it's the same in Peru. This is how these people act too. I mean, the way the numbers are going in the next runoff, De La Espriella is going to win. But here we have a very serious problem, and it's called political patronage. I mean, he'll have to start handing out political favors left and right because he's taking over a party that practically nobody even remembered anymore. And the legislative elections were on March 8th. I mean, here it works differently. There are 3 elections in a row. On March 8th were the legislative elections, then there was the first round and the second, but all the members of Congress and the Senate were already elected on March 8th. And on March 8th, De La Espriella had very little influence. So out of the Senate, which has 103 seats, he got 4. And out of the House of Representatives, which has 183 seats, he got 1. So the one who has the most power in both chambers is actually Cepeda. So this is going to be an experiment, a historic experiment.
A president with one ideology and a Senate and Congress against him. But anyway...
If he wins, he doesn't have a majority either.
But this And in Peru, they've been counting votes for 10 days. They tell me it's already at 100% and that Keiko Fujimori wins by 100th. What are they telling you since you're closer?
Well, yes, we're at 99.03%, something like that. And yes, she wins by a hair. But of course, until the National Jury of Elections issues a ruling, well, we know that mathematically she's going to win. But officially, well, this jury has to make a statement. She does have a majority in both chambers. It works differently there. In the first round of the presidential election, that's when the Congress and the Senate are formed. And yes, she does have them. The Senate has 60 seats, she has 22. And in the Congress, there are 130 seats, and she has 41. But she doesn't have a majority, and neither does the other one. And so there will be what is called, right, ungovernability due to parliamentary fragmentation, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's good that no one has all the power. I like that.
Well, yes, we rest.
They let us breathe.
Me too. What happens next is another matter. I mean, all this is happening right now while we're talking to you. There's an obvious change. There's a wave that started with Millie, that started in El Salvador, that has leaned on Donald Trump to keep rising and sweeping through Hispanic America. Please let it reach Spain. The other day, a very reliable informant came to me here. He told me he did something outrageous, but I want to mention the outrageous thing. It's an ironic message addressed to Donald Trump.
How I've enjoyed, Mr. Trump, the thing about Niño Guerrero. I wanted to give you two future targets who are first cousins of Niño Guerrero, and we have them here in Spain. Look, one is there in Pozuelo. Right now he's in hermit mode. He hardly leaves the house because there's a lot of police at the door, and he's enjoying time with his wife and daughters, with his family. That would be one. And then the other one is at the entrance to the La Coruña highway, in a palace whose name I can't remember right now. But it's easy to find because it has a helipad. So let's see if he doesn't lend a hand and does the same thing.
All right, come on, leave it there or we'll get into trouble. And I don't want to go. It was irony, it was a joke, nobody here. Come on, at the slightest thing here, people go up the wall. This is dangerous.
All right. But anyway, this tip-off is very interesting because I read when I was a kid that losing your sense of humor is the first step toward failure. Keeping your sense of humor is the first step toward success. Let's see, and you deserve it, as does your column and everyone who follows you.
Yes, I'll greet you from Soto. Well,
gentlemen.
Polo Carvajal, get ready because today, Zapatero, at 9 in the morning, maybe by the time you see this, he's already there, starts testifying before the judge. Historic, the first time a former Spanish president under indictment sits in the dock. Well, I have good news, not for Zapatero, but for those of us who want justice. Polo Carvajal has offered himself to testify against Zapatero in the Plus Ultra case. I'm sure you saw Zapatero in the Senate committee in interviews saying that what Polo Carvajal said was false, that he never talked about the mine, and that he had written him a letter saying he never spoke badly about him. All of it is false. Of course, he talked about the mine. Of course, he has information. He was the head of the spies during the time of Hugo Chavez and Maduro. And he has offered to testify against Zapatero in the Plus Ultra case. Look, you've been a member of Spanish intelligence, Francisco, for years. A chief of espionage in a country like the Bolivarian one of Hugo Chavez and Maduro had more power than the president and knew everything.
Right? But everything, absolutely everything. That's crystal clear. And of course, he has more power than the president because he's the one who knows how to instill the most fear, how to export it, how to produce it, even in a president. It happened here too with Manglano. Manglano knew things about others you can imagine, including the royal family, and that was his strength. That's the strength of all intelligence chiefs. If they use it for good, for the benefit of the country, then it's wonderful, as it should be, if they are honest, decent, and people, gentlemen or ladies, as people should be. But when they're not in these totalitarian dictatorial regimes, that's not the case. It's all a gang, it's all a band. So what happens then? They rule more because they create greater fear. And of course, if Polo Cabaljal comes and is allowed to testify, then it seems to me that the only option left for Zapatero when it's his turn to testify is to do it like Mariano Osorio would. Remember? No, talk. I don't agree because he won't be able to say anything else. Because what Polo Cabaljal can reveal, or what he must have already revealed to the Americans and others, with evidence surely is going to be undeniable, unquestionable, airtight. There won't be any way to contradict him. And that could really make Zapatero feel very guilty. Let's see.
Also, we know that Polo Cabaljal kept documents in the cloud, and he distributed documentation to lawyers and family for his own protection. He is fighting against several life sentences. He has nothing to lose except saving his own neck and being able to get out, even if he's older, from the prison where he is, right? It's a very complicated situation because he joins Alex Zap, who was Maduro's front man, who is also collaborating against Zapatero with the United States. Yesterday, another man who was a spy, Commissioner Villarejo, was with us. We recorded a special that's there, uploaded since yesterday afternoon, and he gave us some very good insights. The biggest problem that Zapatero is going to have, and it's not today's trial in Spain.
Listen, I already said it the other day. I said, what did you say about the Souls clan issue and all that, and the problem that Mr. Zapatero is going to face when they open the case for aiding drug trafficking and all that, which they have prepared in the United States? Then that will be much more important than this jewelry issue.
There's a lot to talk about here regarding the jewelry, money laundering, and plus ultra. But when the issue of the alleged money laundering of drug money from Venezuela comes up, that's another level. Why, Pilar, is the drug trade always behind Scheinbaum, behind Petro, behind Venezuela, behind Cuba? It's always the same. What's going on?
Well, here, for example, in Colombia, the guerrillas joined forces with the drug trade because it was the most profitable. In the end, it's about money. It's about extracting money. I love to understand all of this. The Public Choice School of Mucana, Nobel Prize in Economics, this is a typical case from the book, like all the ones we're seeing, which he called rent shaking, that is using political capital to extract rents from all of us for private enrichment. So then that's not what's being done. And well, drug trafficking brings in a lot of money because in the end, it's just a plant, it's production process, and all that is easy, and there you go. And besides, with this, not only do they make money easily, but it also brings down the West. All these movements need to undermine the values, the people of the West, those of us who pay. I mean, they want to change, they want to destroy the West.
And one way is to weaken us by hooking our children and grandchildren on these substances, right? They win and weaken the country. It's terrible. This is like a mafia, right? It's a mafia, Pilar. That's it.
Yes, I actually have two questions. Who are the Spanish institutions serving? And two, what are they doing with our money?
Those are good questions. As for the second one, I'm sure you have to look for it in a tax haven. First, staying in power is the only goal. Look, for example, every day I deal with the PSOE and the UCO reports that keep coming to me. We strain our eyes because there are very specific small issues that sometimes go unnoticed. I want you to look at this facade of a building in the Salamanca neighborhood at 36 Diego de Leon Street on the 6th floor. You're looking at it, a good neighborhood, a nice building, the apartment valued at 1.4 million euros, almost 1.5 million. Well, this is one of the several safe houses of the PSOE. The PSOE has safe houses around Madrid to meet with people they don't want seen at the headquarters. With the lawyer they're going to assign to Sanchez's brother, with Lera and her off-the-books cash payments to keep people quiet. Blackmail, those dirtier things aren't done at the headquarters. They're done in safe houses like this one, which were paid for by the party. UCO report. It's not a media invention. And one more photo. Do you remember the photo from just a few days ago of the UDF entering the PSOE headquarters where they're going up and you can see them with their backpacks? Okay. The PSOE just tinted the glass on the door. In other words, if you can't avoid being a thief and a thug, at least prevent the photojournalist outside from getting a shot of the police going in. They've tinted the glass, and now we can't take photos like this anymore because you can't see through. What's next? Will Vendala come? Will they put up a watchtower, an electrified fence?
With razor wire? I'm sure they will, because Pilar said the keyword and I, Madero, agree with her with my usual courage. Mafia. The mafia is exactly the same. The mafia has always had safe houses. The bosses used to meet and still meet in safe houses. They hide. They have to hold their secret meetings in places where supposedly they can't be heard or seen or anything like that. That's the point. And the point is money, obviously. Of course, why? No, because it's about power, for the cash.
For the zero and the money for the power.
What's next? Well, the next thing we're going to discover is more mafia-like behavior. And it's textbook, it's absolutely textbook. And on top of that, they've even left the evidence behind. And that's what, the only thing, thank God, that's allowing us to know everything they've done. Because since they've been so arrogant, since they thought they had everything perfectly under control, that no one would ever come after them here, they've left evidence everywhere. That's probably what they regret the most. Because if they had acted differently, they would have covered themselves. But as always, their passion got the best of them. And what else happens when the people at the top start to talk?
Las mafias siempre cayeron, los gastes porque alguien de dentro empezó a cantar porque estaba enfadado, no había cobrado lo suficiente o demás. Lo hemos visto a lo largo de la historia.
It's exactly the same. We can expect anything. Let's see.
Mercedes Gonzalez, the Director General of the Civil Guard, said she didn't know Lere, the plumber. Then a bunch of meetings come up, including 2 meetings with Lere, and she says, well, yes, she did know her. Now, in the Senate committee yesterday afternoon, she said no again.
I have never ever met with Ms. Diaz. Not in the General Directorate of the Civil Guard, not in my office, nor in any other official office of the General Directorate. I have never ever met with Ms. Diaz, not to stop any investigation, nor to prepare or devise any scheme. Since my appointment on September 18, 2024, the institution I lead has been acting as the judicial police, in charge of investigations related to the cases of greatest social, media, and political significance. I have always respected thoroughly and scrupulously the work carried out by the Civil Guard's Judicial Police Headquarters by the Central Operational Unit.
Well, that's enough lying. It's obvious after hearing so many lies. Look, he says, I have never met with her in any office of the General Directorate. Of course, because they met in a safe house. They lie every time they speak. In fact, he didn't accept questions from anyone in the commission. The UCU has shown that they had at least 2 meetings. She knew they were obstructing, sabotaging the UCU in everything they did, and she is the Director General. And she didn't inform Marlaska or Sánchez because they were the ones ordering the sabotage. And she collaborated by looking the other way. And besides, she deleted her messages with Lera. Here it is. We'll show it to you again, the document from the UCU report, where you can see that every time they talked, they would delete the messages afterwards. Come on. All she needed was to get a prepaid phone like Zapatero when he talked to his frontmen, right? It's all very crude. Vendala, I get the impression that the Civil Guard is at its limit. They can't stand this woman anymore, or Marlaska, or the Dao, who apparently told them to look the other way because it's the Sánchez family. All these people should be in prison.
Absolutely. Look, I needed to share a thought, Albert, and thank you for giving me the floor on this. And with all my heart, truly, the Civil Guard doesn't deserve the general directors it has had, 90% of them for the past 50 years. Look at what I'm telling you. I might be wrong about some of them, and I apologize for that, but it's been something incredible. Why? Because political power has invaded, has infected, has contaminated the civil guard. Some for one reason, others for another. We've been this way for 40 years. The civil guard doesn't deserve it. Politicians should know that there are
institutions that have their own directors general. You need lieutenant generals.
Hay tenientes generales, tienes generales de división. No puedes poner a un chico de 40 años porque sea de tu partido. Por ejemplo, me estoy acordando de Fernández de Mesa, del Partido Popular, que no había hecho nunca nada en su vida. Era el hijo de un coronel y era el hijo un poco cantante.
Well, they made him the chief general director of the Civil Guard.
the PSOE. What can I say? Roldan, do you remember him now? The civil guard doesn't deserve that. And now comes the tough part. The commanders of the civil guard, when a general director is appointed,
tienen que tener una voz y tienen que decirle al presidente del gobierno.
We can't be commanded as if the director were God.
He has no idea what the civil guard is, knows nothing about criminal laws, and doesn't even know what a notative is. He doesn't know anything about...
Doing anything will lead to disaster.
There's some blame there too.
También por parte de los mandos superiores de la Guardia Civil. La Guardia Civil está al límite, a ver, como nunca posiblemente lo ha estado toda su historia. Y eso para España, que es lo que nos tiene que importar, es gravísimo, porque es un cuerpo...
Mental for our safety, where there are also many people, many human beings who work every day, and it's not...
que trabajan diariamente y que no se merecen, que están siendo vapuleados desde arriba.
Yes, sir. Look, I'm getting some latest information that's a bit scary. Rodriguez Zapatero and his lawyers are frantically searching in Arab countries for documents that justify ZP's jewels. Logically, I don't think they're real because it's very complicated. And if they're forgeries, the judge has already warned that he could add the crime of document forgery to the 6 charges Zapatero already has. Zapatero traveled to Saudi Arabia in the middle of the Plus Ultra investigation, just when the UDF had just detected funds and transactions in that country. And on the other hand, Begoña Gomez says the reason she mortgaged one of her apartments is because she needs cash. Come on, she's loaded. I mean, she has as many apartments as she wants. And cash too, but not much of it is justifiable. Just in case, imagine she has 2 accounts in the Dominican Republic. Well, she can't justify. Wait, what was the account number? I'm going to check. She supposedly had 2 accounts in the Dominican Republic that we mentioned here, but of course she can't withdraw money from there from Banco Lopez de Aro. No, this can't be. So she has mortgaged an apartment for 240,000 euros to have cash to pay for experts, lawyers, and everything that's going to happen. It's an apartment on Prado Street in Madrid, 113 square meters, very close to Plaza de Santa Ana. In public funds alone, Judge Peinado wants her to deposit, or is going to ask her to deposit, 113,000 euros, which would be the amount of financial damage caused to third parties. And there's a phrase that when I read it today made me think of you, Pilar, that Rodolfo Reyes, the owner of Plus Ultra, writes to a partner that is on Reyes's mobile phone, the one he had in the United States, where it all begins, and he says, hey, that's great. We have the support of Zapatero's buddy with CEPI, which means they're going to give us the 53 million in aid. And the friend replies, long live the left, damn it, as if saying the left sure knows how to steal. But aren't we good at playing games with public money? To me, this phrase, long live the left, damn it, when did they get Zapatero's sweet deal? This is a statement of intent, isn't it?
Well, look, they've done it. They've compared it to Milei. They've made the analogy with Milei, like you said, Albert. Yes, a little humor, right, Francisco? Like you said, humor to get through this, just like you said before, Albert.
But do you really think they're left-wing? If they think they're doing good and believe they're morally superior, I can't believe it. No.
No. These are very well-made institutions to take our money, period. I mean, and then they dress it up as anything, any ideology they think will get them more votes. But that's what you said before. You said the phrase, collaborated, looking the other way, that's the key. Look, Hannah Arendt studied this a lot in The Origins of Totalitarianism, and she realized it when she attended the Eichmann trial in Jerusalem, that this was a great guy who played the piano, who told his children bedtime stories, and this guy, as Minister of Transport, he transported Jews to extermination centers as if he were transporting soccer balls. I mean, he was a diligent and capable official who handled the trains very well. And no. And he looked the other way regarding what the trains were carrying and how they were carrying it and so on. That's the key, looking the other way. And when there's a huge mass of people in our country, what a shame, looking the other way. What happens, happens. And what you said, Francisco, is also, I think it's key. A regime doesn't fall if there aren't cracks in that regime. Look how they don't fall, because there are no cracks. How is it possible that neither Abalos nor the other one, nor the fixer say anything? What do they have on them? What do all the ministers have, each and every one? What papers does Zapatero, Sánchez have on each of them? So that they don't let anything slip that could catch fire. 2 judges and ministers know perfectly well what's going on. What do they have that they won't let go of? Something incriminating. What do you have? Of course, Pilar said something. Sorry, Albert. Very interesting. Also, what he said about Hitzman is what, and he said it in his trial.
I have only obeyed. I am a civil servant. I obeyed blindly. He never considered himself a criminal, a murderer, anything like that. No. They give me an order, I obey it. That and looking the other way. That's what makes a bureaucratic structure serve corruption, crime, the mafia, the thieves, the ones who get away, whatever you want. And as a good friend of mine says, very sincerely, the PSOE is an irregular commercial company, meaning illegal, with infinite profit motive. And that's what it's about. It's not about doing politics or governing. No. It's get away with it. Like Pilar said, what she's saying is it's about grabbing however you can and staying in power to keep grabbing.
Of course, Esmeralda.
And there's a book.
Tell me. Oh, sorry, please.
I recommend a short book about beauty queens called Bureaucracy. It's about 70 pages, Francisco. It discusses exactly what you mentioned, obedience. Would you consider moving the room? Bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy.
Burocracia.
Bureaucracy by Mrs. Esmeralda. He explains to us how they managed to steal the vote in Venezuela. Let's see if we learn here in Venezuela.
People voted for a candidate, and that candidate, when they entered the company that handled the voting. Since Hugo Chavez Frias, that same company was the one changing it. When entering, that name was changed to the name of Hugo Chavez Frias, and that's how it was done from Hugo Chavez Frias to Maduro. It's the same system that Spain bought from Venezuela.
We're afraid of what they want to do with the votes of the grandchildren. They don't expect them not to vote. They don't care if they vote for them or not. But they do want to have in the census a few 100,000 who can be changed with the help of third parties. Is that true about the government? Jose Ignacio Guerrero, Fernanda, Mark, Annabel, and Silvia.
I would bet my life that all the data this government is giving is false. Come on, I'm absolutely sure about it. I wish I were wrong, but the day the government changes, when different people govern Spain, they're going to take over. But it's going to be very difficult because they're going to find a lot of surprises.
Well, yes, it would be great news and very good if the justice system finally managed to prove that Leire Diaz was receiving money from the PSOE to do all those misdeeds she was committing. Well, Leire Diaz and the rest of the sewer gang?
As for Begoña Gomez, I have a theory, and it's that the lady has more power than her husband. I think her husband acts the way he does outside the house because at home they don't let him do anything.
He's going to take 5 weeks of vacation, and during these 5 weeks he's going to be scheming. This will be the last one. So they're not giving him any more ammunition. Will he plan something big?
I'm really tired, and it hurts every time they say that citizens don't do anything. But what do I gain? What do I gain by going out into the street? But if this is organized the way it should be, which is through political parties, they are the ones who have to stand up for us. That's what we pay them for. This would be different because for that we have always been there on the front lines, doing whatever it takes to be with the people, saving whatever is needed, from Alitasario.
Speaking about Pedro Sánchez and his plan to stay, yesterday he made a statement where he said he intended to stay 8 more years until 2035, he said, or something like that. From 27 to 35, 8 more years. And people, well, they laughed and said this is impossible. I mean, it doesn't seem to me that his plan is to leave and come back in 3 years.
Look, there's a date that Sanchez has in mind, and I mentioned it 8 years ago and they called me crazy, but I assure you that's where it's heading. 2031. The 100th anniversary of the Second Republic, he wants to celebrate it to be the president of the Third Republic, so get ready, Don Felipe. And for that, he has to stay in power with enough support and a majority, and that goal is burned into him. It's crazy, yes, but that's not news anymore, right? Vendala, do you think it's possible?
I totally think it's possible. What you're telling us is great. Now that you mentioned it, 8 years ago you said it, you're a prophet. Well, prophet and prophecies. No, the prophecies come true. They do. That's the problem. There's no doubt about it. He's a textbook tyrant, and that's what he's doing and what he'll keep doing until the very end. And 2 quick notes. The first about your inside information, no doubt, if there's a change, they'll give the usual order when you leave a position. Burn everything so that whoever comes in finds nothing. And to the lady who called, you're already doing a lot, ma'am. You're an insider. You watch Albert Castillo. You follow the show. You call in and say it. And that's how things are kept going. Each of us doing the little we can whenever we can.
Pilar, do you think she's in charge at Casa Begoña and that's why Sanchez acts so authoritarian outside the house? Yes.
Yes, I don't know. I really don't know about that. But Sanchez being bossed around by someone, I don't see that either. I mean, this guy, look, we despise him, and that's one of the mistakes we need to fix. This guy is a genius politically. He's a genius politically. He's a terrible person. I mean, he has no limits and so on. That's exactly why he's still around. Exactly because of that. And that's how we need to consider him, and that's how we need to fight him. If we don't truly understand our enemy, we're in trouble. Labeling him a jerk ignores the fact that he knows what he's doing, which is why he's where he is and why he's doing the damage he's doing to us.
I completely agree with you, but nobody says that. And it's very interesting. When the enemy is capable of anything, we shouldn't underestimate him because that just guarantees he'll keep winning. Of course, no, we'll never win that way. My father was also in the military. My father was a lieutenant colonel. And well-disciplined, no.
We'll never win. My father was also in the military. My father was a lieutenant colonel. And well, military discipline, as you mentioned before, Francisco, aside from all that, military discipline is a way of seeing life and a way of being. And my father used to say the 6 children, generous and brave, both things, because you can't be generous, you can't be a good person if you're not brave. Machado said it too, you have to be brave. Well, those 2 things are in the DNA of the Spanish people. And it seems like we can't manage to get rid of this tyrant, but the first thing is to recognize that he is one and that he is very good politically, precisely because he is bad.
And he is very good, really good. And first, there is never a small enemy. Never. There is never a small or easy enemy. Never. You should never start with that premise. And the second is what Pilar said. You have to know your enemy and you have to recognize their virtues, in quotes, which are what keep them going. And their mission is to destroy us, and ours is to destroy them. Well, let's see if we learn. Of course, I'm saying this about the opposition.
When you say there's no small enemy, do you know what came to my mind? Cape Verde. Cape Verde came to my mind, yes. There's some controversy because Lamine Yamal, yes, played with the Spanish national team, but there you see her. She debuted in the World Cup with the Moroccan flag for her father and the Equatorial Guinea flag for her mother. On her boots and, I don't know, maybe on the sole of her shoe, she had the Palestinian flag, which she loves, and she already showed it off all over Barcelona. And do we criticize her or not? Or does she have the right? Because it seems like she only wants to be in Spain to make money, Francisco.
I don't think she has the right. It's inappropriate. Besides, I think it's disrespectful to all Spaniards, starting with the national team and the coach, who, if you'll pardon the redundancy, has selected her. You're there at an official event. It's a soccer match, but it's an official event of the highest level, representing Spain exclusively, and you've been selected to represent Spain. And you take off any other little flag, any other story, any other thing. Later, once you're off the field, you can put whatever you want on your shoes. But I think it's something shameful. And I think the Spanish coach should take action and make him play barefoot in the next match. Let's see if then he does things differently. I thought it was shameful, really shameful.
Yes, look, I have 3 points. First, identities are not monolithic and you can have several. But institutions, and this is an institution, I mean, the national team is an institution. They do require symbolic loyalties. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, this mobilizes public resources, meaning we are the ones paying for it. And this player is publicly saying that his commitment is merely instrumental. I mean that his loyalty is to others. And that the national team is not a free market. It's a political and sports institution that we pay for. And I have a question for Francisco. What's happening in the army with the Moroccans? Because the other day I had lunch with 3 colonels from the army and I asked them, I said, what's happening with the Moroccans who are already in the army and even already hold middle management positions? All 3 of them told me that in every case they knew of, their loyalty would be to Morocco and not to Spain, even though they are in the Spanish army.
How do you see it? No, I'll explain it clearly because I know Morocco. We've said it before. Let's see if we can remember. For all Spaniards, the confidential ones. Moroccans, because of their constitution and their religious dependence, have an inalienable double loyalty to the Sultan. They can acquire a nationality, they can serve in the Spanish army, in the American army, on the moon, wherever they want. They still maintain that loyalty pillar, meaning they are not to be trusted. Why? Because that loyalty, on one hand, institutional, let's say constitutional, and on the other, for them, it's the Pope, let's say, right? It binds them, and then there's a third one, which isn't mentioned, but I know it perfectly well. They're bound by what they have there. Family, they always have family, and we already know how the Sultan deals with the families of those who don't go along with him. We already know what he did to Ustid's family, wife and daughter, the one who tried to assassinate him. He kept them for 20 years in a prison in the desert, her in one cell, the daughter in another, and he didn't even let them see each other. For 20 years, they could hear each other through the walls. Be careful who we're dealing with. We need to know Morocco, Pilar, Albert, and here we still don't know Morocco. We don't know it yet. That's what's happening. The 3 colonels told you clearly, and they're right. When the time comes, I'm referring to Ceuta, Melilla, the Canary Islands. When the time comes, they will be loyal to the Sultan for everything I've said, Pilar.
Well, we already have them in our army, yes?
Yes.
We don't have an army now.
No, we don't have the army.
The other day, Marco Antonio Gomez from the Asociación Presidente de ADME was here. They were talking about a rally to improve salary issues. And of course, the topic of benefits came up. And if they're ordered to do something illegal, what do, right? Because they're intermediate military ranks who follow orders, they're the troops, the sailors, not the ones at the top. And it was complicated to get them to admit that even if it was an illegal order, they wouldn't follow it. We already saw that in Valencia, right? With the flood, Pilar, Javier, Fernando, and Meva want to talk.
The military in Ladana followed illegal orders.
Because obeying the order not to go help Spaniards who are dying is a crime, 100% of the Spanish army, because going without a uniform doesn't work for me.
In the Valencia tragedy, they did commit an illegality, which was obeying the orders of their superiors, which is illegal. To go out and help our Valencian brothers to rescue them, because surely if they had gone out from the very first moment, many people wouldn't have died.
Ceuta and Melilla are occupied, and the order is for them to do nothing. They're not going to act. It's a disgrace.
No, in the Nuremberg trials, the Germans claimed the Nazis
They claimed that they were just following orders, that they were abiding by the law that at that time was in effect in Germany. At that time, they weren't doing anything illegal. But well, above positive law, there is natural law. And what if he doesn't receive an order to evacuate or to help in Havana where people are dying? Well, any commander on his own should give that order and, well, act according to his conscience, and then whatever happens, happens.
Who is the Captain General of all the armies, they tell us?
The Captain General of the Armed Forces, the one who wears a baton over baton on his cuff. Should he already put himself in his place and meet with whoever he has to meet with, and make it clear to him that he is the one in charge of the army and that any order of any kind must be within his knowledge.
Isn't he in charge, or is he in charge, Vendala?
Let's see, is he really not in charge as the head of the armed forces because it's his duty as head of state to command any armed force, a company, a regiment? There are two conditions that must be met. First, the condition of command earned according to what is stipulated for general ranks, whatever it may be, etc., and then a continued exercise of that command. That also needs to be made clear about the armed forces, but there's something important. Let's see. Absolute obedience to a human being is owed only to God and to his absolute faithful command. It's another thing that we all sin. From that point on, there is no institution in the armed forces either that owes absolute obedience to command. You must obey the command except when the order is, in our case, unconstitutional, illegal or illegitimate, or allegedly criminal, and then the code.
We are in the sappers unit next to Valencia. They're drowning, and the commander says he hasn't been given the order and can't go out. If I, let's say as a commander, go out with my people, I know that later I'll get a sanction. You have to do it. You have to do it despite the sanction, right?
You have to do it because besides, we'll see about the sanction, because the military justice code says what I just said, that illegal orders are not to be obeyed. That's what was applied to the lieutenants during 23F. They said what Pilar said before, what Eichmann said. No, I was just following orders because that's what I had to do. No, excuse me. They tell you to enter Congress and you don't have to enter Congress. Let's see, I don't have to. Here's what happened with the lady, and it's the same with many things. It will also happen with Cruz and your little fear, whether you're a soldier, NCO, officer, chief, or general. What happens, obviously, is that you have to have moral courage. There's a physical courage. When I see that my survival is at stake, if I need to defend peace and my family, my wife, my son, and so on. But there is a moral courage, which is when in peacetime. I'm not risking myself physically, but I'm putting my promotion, my future, my perks, my position, my career on the line. That is moral courage. So there is no possible excuse. Obedience is being mistaken for submission and neutrality for inaction. And that's where we are.
Let's see, Pilar, what would your father have done?
My father was very clear about it. And in fact, that's how he acted his whole life. But we're seeing it not only in Spain, but all over the West. Look at what's happening in the north of England with the hundreds. They say it goes from over 100,000 girls to over 200,000. They've been destroyed, raped, had everything done to them by a gang of 200 and something, mostly Pakistanis. Everyone knew. Reports have been around since 2000. That's exactly why nothing was done, because of the same phenomenon we're talking about. The Nuremberg trials, Eichmann in Jerusalem, it's the same thing. So they wouldn't call you racist. The police knew, the mayors knew, there were reports. Everyone looked the other way and said they were just following orders and weren't evil. They were just ordinary family men. But so they wouldn't be called racists and to avoid problems within their chain of command. Well, there you go. It's the same phenomenon. Have we become cowards? It's a matter of values. In the end, it's a deep question of values, like you said, Francisco. Indeed, values like you shall not kill, you shall not bear false witness, and so on. So it's very clear there. So with this, you risk your position, you risk your promotion. My father risked his promotion, and of course, he risked it and he lost it. That's fine. He did it. And so if we all did our part, like you also said, Francisco, with the lady, with the confidential informant who spoke earlier, what do I do? All of us, each one of us, in our own area, whatever we can, at all times, it's the same phenomenon. Are we going back to a moral degradation of the West? We're destroying the pillars of the West because of an absurd cowardice. Because it also harms us when we look the other way, and it harms others too. We're allowing injustices to be committed against them, and we're causing Western civilization to fall apart, to come undone at the seams. We have to be generous and brave again.
I'll hold on to your words and an example of what you're saying. Imagine there's a public event by Yon Belara, and a supposed group of Cubans shows up with a Cuban flag. I mean, as if they're saying how great things are with the Castro's communism for the past 67 years. Well, a real Cuban, one of the exiles, one of those who are here, he takes his phone, which is a camera, and records them when they want to leave by car. Take a look.
Hey, quick question. Are any of you Cuban, like the one with the Cuban flag? Because none of you are Cuban or carry the Cuban flag. What are you doing? In Cuba, we don't want the communism. In Cuba, we don't want you. Why do you have a Cuban flag if none of you are Cuban? Just for the photo, right? For the little photo, dumbass. For the little photo, for the little photo, for the little photo. Communist dumbass, communist dumbass, communist dumbass. Suck it, and you too.
They lock themselves in the car and leave. Yeah.
Yeah, open up, show that none of you are Cuban, show yourself from there. A bunch of disgusting communists here at John Ione Velara's event with a Cuban flag. None of them are Cuban, so that later in the little photo, it shows up in John Ione Velara's photo from the presentation event. That crap, that lie that the Cubans were here supporting them. None of them are Cuban. None of them are Cuban.
Well, this is what we mean, the small actions of each person every day. I assure you, this changes the world. This changes the world. A small action without violence is all that's needed from each person every day with the truth, and this changes the world. Well, we're going to the newsroom, and then I have a scene for Pilar that she's going to love. First, Susana Gas, tell me.
Here we are, Albert, in the Castillon Confidential newsroom. And from here, all our insiders send you many congratulations because they believe that all the information is incredibly brave. That's the case with Imaros. He says it's thanks to Judge Peinado, the UCO, and caring journalists like you, Albert Castillon, who love Spain and its people. And they dare to tell the truth no matter the cost. Firkin says that the prosecutor's office and most institutions needed to be cleaned up, down to their foundations and beyond, and all this PSOE mafia. They should all go to jail without exception, and parties should be disqualified if possible. On the other hand, Teresa says it's impossible for Sánchez to run in another election. He has ruined the PSOE and the socialists. They should also take action. And instead of celebrating the centenary of the Republic that they themselves ended, they're going to drag us into war again while Spain sleeps. Here we don't get up. Francesca says this week is tragic, and you're absolutely right. But for this misgovernment, it's the week of hope. Misgovernment, tragic for the misgovernment, hope for all Spaniards. Thank you to the whole team for always telling the truth. Jose Gregorio says warm greetings from Puerto Cumandebo, Falcón, Venezuela. We are extremely proud of you, Mr. Castillon, and also of the whole team that is part of this podcast. So interesting, important, and it listens to us, speaks to us, and represents us. Also, Belen says, what will become of this país y de sus ciudadanos de bien? Fútbol, vacaciones, mucha gente está en Babia o acaba viendo este drama. Thank you. What a conversation when we go have coffee. Magnificent show. Congratulations on your work and your courage, and we fully support you. But we want Sánchez to leave no matter what. Bartolome says that he thinks it's just a thought that Begoña is worse than Sánchez. Because of that arrogance, and no matter how arrogant she is, she will end up in the dock, and no one can take that away from her. And cheers, and this is the last one. In Spain, no hay oposición. Thank you. Aquí lo dejamos al ver, importantísimo siempre que nos sigan en todas nuestras redes, pero también our channels, and obviously, as I always say, on that digital newspaper, CastillonConfidencial.com, where we summarize and explain all the current news from this podcast, Castillon Confidencial. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susana. Remember that we are not doing anything exceptional here, just our job, period, nothing exceptional. And Donald Trump does the same. Yesterday, he received Macron. Trump doesn't like Macron, and neither do I. And besides, Macron was rude, because when the G7 comes, it's normal for the president to go and receive them, and he didn't go to receive Macron. As a result, he shook his hand like this, a strange gesture where he puts his hand facing down, and it looks like he's inviting him to dance or something, just something absolutely ridiculous to make Macron look ridiculous. Those are the brilliant moments of Donald Trump. And now for you, dear Pilar Almagro. Shakira giving a nod to her country, the country where you are now, to Colombia, and De La Espriella. Listen to De La Espriella. Sale. And all the dancers dressed as tigers. You get it, right?
That's great.
You hadn't seen this video yet?
Seen it? Great, great. Well,
we have to be thankful. These things aren't easy for an artist.
No, because of course half the country is against it, of course.
Of this idea. Half the country is with PK now, right? They're with PK, and the other half, like you and me, with Shakira.
No, really brave. Honestly, very brave, because here they don't mess around. Here they'll shoot you for less than singing.
And if I sing off key, I have to be careful because I could get in trouble with you. Well, you're going to Peru in a few days, right?
Yes. I'll be there to see what happens. But my company is split too. I mean, some are in favor of Keiko Fujimori and others support Sánchez. It's just that being called Sánchez already puts you in a bad mood, honestly. No.
And being called Sánchez and being like him, it's like you carry the sin in your last name. Forgive me, but honestly, it's unbelievable. Well, from Peru, will you tell me how things are in a few days? Big hugs, Pilar. Thank you very much.
A hug to everyone.
My dear Vendel, it has been a pleasure. A hug, my friend. Likewise, a hug. Well, gentlemen, has anything happened that only happens here? Alvaro de Marichalar saw that they were drilling in the Valley of the Fallen, looked for the owner of the company, and showed up at his house. He'll tell us about it in a minute. You're listening to Castillon Confidential. Gentlemen, the Superior Court of Justice of Madrid has suspended the first drillings in the Valley of the Fallen. The appeal was filed by the Association for Reconciliation and Historical Truth. It turns out that the works did not have municipal authorization, nor did they have a technical project submitted. And they have caused irreparable damage to a heritage site like the Valley of the Fallen, which is protected. We were very surprised to see that the machines started operating just as the Pope was visiting. There's a friend of this program who always goes further, always goes beyond, Alvaro de Marichalar. Welcome, how are you?
Hello, Albert. How are you doing? Everything okay?
How are you? Good to see you. You have been coming to the Valley for many weeks, coming to defend the Valley so that it doesn't change, so that it remains what it is. A center for reconciliation. And you've done something I've been told that I had no idea about. And that is going to the house of the owner of the company that was drilling in the Valley of the Fallen. Tell me about it, please.
That's right, yes. Well, I think we all have to get involved in defending our heritage, don't we? And it's not an option, it's a right that all Spaniards have, and I think it's also a duty. So using that right and that duty that all Spaniards have, I found out which company carried out those desecration works on the esplanade of the Basilica of the Holy Cross of the Valley of the Fallen. And I went to see the owner of the company. And I found a frightened man together with his family, his wife and his son. It took him a bit of effort to open the door for me. I told him I just came to find out what had happened, and it was nice because he recognized me. It turns out that his son used to follow me on the expeditions I do, and he also had some idea of what I've been doing at sea. It's been so many, many years now. And so that gave him confidence. He let me into his house and we talked for about an hour. I don't know. Well, now he's relaxed. We've become friends, really. A charming guy, but scared. I had scared him. I tried to calm him down. I tried, well, to tell him, hey, I know I was just a private individual and please tell me what happened. And he told me that he had been deceived, that he had been hired by the architect from the consortium that won the contest for the so-called resignification of the Valley of the Fallen, because a church can't really be resignified, right? It means to pray and nothing else. I mean, even the name, just like the name of the so-called democratic memory law, it's all wrong, right? Because it's neither memory nor democratic. It's a dictatorial imposition, a law of dictatorial imposition, nothing to do with memory or democracy. He told me he regretted what he had done.
He told you that he was sorry?
That he was sorry, that he acted in good faith, that he was told they needed to do some test pits to measure the water table layers precisely to better preserve the place, and that later he realized he had been deceived. But it's true that he drilled a series of holes, and the next day he took the machine out of there without having finished his contract, taking the risk that he might not get paid later, and so on. On top of that, the machine was vandalized and damaged in what he believes, and we all believe, was a false flag operation. It means that this mafia-like government probably sent someone there to vandalize that equipment so that in the future they could justify closing off the whole area whenever they really want to start digging.
We're looking at photos that we've already seen before. It's true, they've spray painted this man's machine that you went to see. Do you think that was a deliberate attack to close off the valley, to bring in private security, and to make sure no one gets involved in what they're doing again? So that no photos or videos are taken like the ones many people have uploaded to social media, right?
That's what I think. What we believe is that these people are the mafia, they're the worst. I mean, the worst possible scenario is when Sánchez is involved. Of course, the son-in-law of a pimp, what can he do? Well, dirty tricks, right? So you always have to be prepared for the worst possible scenario. So we're sure, or let's say very sure, or it's very likely that it was an operation they call a false flag, right? I mean, to have staged a provocation in order to justify in the future actions that are even more criminal, right? Like hiring a private security company to remove the civil guard from there, and so that we, the witnesses, can't actually be witnesses. It will reveal the many atrocities committed by this open criminal government.
Who else but you would think of tracking down the owner of the drilling machine, calling his home and showing up there? Do you understand that this man didn't even have to open the door for you? You're aware of that, right? Poor man, he's not guilty of anything. Not at all.
But I went, as I said, as a concerned person, one of the 47 million Spaniards who are worried about the direction an organized mafia is taking us. An organized group of criminals, just like has happened at other times in our history, right? The PSOE gang has always been the same. And so, well, we have to stay vigilant because they're stealing our history, our present, and our future. So we have to do whatever it takes, whatever we can, always within ourselves. The law to stop them, to stop these people.
What most people do is file a lawsuit, make an appeal, go to court, what this association we've mentioned has done to stop the construction. You didn't. You did what civil society does, knock on the door and explain it. Did that man know where he was working and what was intended to be done in the Valley of the Fallen? That they wanted to remove all religious references?
He, like so many Spaniards, was not aware. The problem we Spaniards have in this somewhat half-asleep society is that we don't know. We don't know what's going on. And they play with that. They take advantage of ignorance. They take advantage of the lack of knowledge. The other day when I was at the Bernabeu watching His Holiness the Pope, and there were 70,000 people cheering for the Pope, you could see that they were people who, well, not even one of them knew what they are doing with the Basilica, the one of the Holy Cross of the Valley of the Fallen. And that's something that not only the criminal government takes advantage of, but also the necessary support that this mafia-like government is finding in the Curia, in the Spanish Episcopal Conference, especially in this Monsignor, to say something about Monsignor Cobo, right? Archbishop of Madrid and Cardinal. Cardinal, by the way, who was proposed to the previous Pope Francisco, no less than by Carmena. So Carmena was the one who proposed that Cobo be appointed as cardinal. How incredible, as Archbishop of Madrid. And that's how they're acting, right? They're acting against the will of the majority of Catholics and the rest of the Spanish people, against the legacy of reconciliation shared by all Spaniards and other Europeans, and against the universal heritage that this basilica represents for all humanity. But they don't care, because it's very likely that the criminal government we Spaniards are suffering has information about this archbishop, and in exchange for that information, they're blackmailing him just as we're seeing now. And we've also seen this in other periods of the Socialist Party. Let's not forget the era of Gal, right? And of Rodlan, and so on, right? They live off blackmail. So it's very likely, and we're going to prove it because we'll keep working on it, that they have information about the Episcopal Conference or some of its members, which is why the Episcopal Conference isn't acting as it should. And not just the Episcopal Conference, but the Vatican as well. Because otherwise it's completely inexplicable, totally inexplicable, that the Vatican is allowing the desecration of a pontifical basilica, where the highest authority is precisely the Pope, the Vatican.
What you're saying, what you're suggesting, what you're pointing out is very serious, but you're right that it wouldn't be the first time. We're going to stay vigilant and above all, send a big hug from here to that man. You gave him a scare, but now you've become friends. He must be a good person. If not...
No, really, he had a nice Spanish flag at his house. He told me he was acting in good faith, that he actually thought he was going to help maintain things so that place wouldn't get flooded and all that. In the end, they tricked him. They tricked him, and these guys trick everyone all the time, don't they? So we have to be very vigilant, and above all, and I'll finish with this, the most important thing in this case is to understand the reasons why the Curia, the Episcopal Conference, is not defending a church, which in the end is a church. Let's not forget that the Abbey of the Holy Cross of the Valley of the Fallen, the 1,600 hectares of that estate are holy ground. I mean, nothing can be desecrated, not just in the church itself, but also in the surrounding area and the rest of the estate. It's a Benedictine abbey. It's a holy place. And the Spanish state has agreements signed with the Holy See by which all holy places are protected. And it's the duty of the state to protect them, and it's the duty of Patrimonio Nacional to maintain them, and they're not doing it. And from your program, I want to again call the attention of the Director of National Heritage, ANA, so that she fulfills her mission. As a public official, which is what she is nothing more than a public official with the sole mission of fulfilling her duty and the law. She is not doing that. So, if she is not doing it, she has two options. Either tell us why she is not doing it, who is pressuring her not to do it, or resign. She has no other options.
Yes.
It's that simple.
It's hard to explain to someone who lives abroad and comes here that this heritage site has been left to crumble without any help from the heritage authorities. This happens specifically due to political ideologies. Thank you, Alvaro, for always being one step ahead. Stay strong, and thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, and thank you for your work in spreading the truth and the responsibility that we all have to take on.
A hug, my friend.
Thank you.
Gustavo is a loyal confidant who is in North Carolina, but he never misses a Spain match, of course.
Hello, family. How are you? I'm here taking a little break, watching the Spain versus Cape Verde match. It's the 55th minute, and Spain hasn't been able to score a goal. Well, you see, those humble, small teams work more as a unit. They put in more effort. And also the big national teams. Well, all their players are worn out because they're playing all over the world with very tough seasons.
Yes, but remember what our friend Gustavo says. The smaller teams work more closely together and can be stronger. That's us, small teams, and little by little we're fighting. Thank you very much, Roberto. He tells me to be careful because something is happening on YouTube. Let me know if the same thing is happening to you as it is to him.
Just so you know, they're boycotting your channel. It's happened to me several times that I'm watching it, and it's already pretty far along, and suddenly it jumps back and returns to a point maybe near the beginning or something like that. It only happens with your show. I've checked, and it's happened several times.
If anyone else has experienced this, let us know so we can contact YouTube or explain what's going on. It can't be good. But anyway, we need to make sure it's not just a problem with the computer or rover system. Thank you very much, my friend Juan Pablo Gentleman. Here's a meme that I really liked. You see a player from Spain, and instead of another from Cape Verde, you see a civil guard who is a cabo. And of course, he's green because he's a civil guard. And it says the coach of Cape Verde is Lieutenant Colonel Balas. That's why they did so well. That's very good. Freud Lannister, Trial of Zapatero. It's happening right now, maybe while they're watching this show. Angeline sent it, and I'm sure it'll be something like this.
Mr. Zapatero, where did the jewels come from, Zapatero? Mr. Zapatero, sir, where did the jewels we found in your box come from? Intense.
Thank you. Well, look, Your Honor, I don't remember, but I'm almost sure it was something to do with Franco. But anyway.
You have the papers for those jewels, right?
I'm afraid my dog ate them.
What do you mean, your dog?
Yes, Your Honor, just as you heard. But if you give me a 2-week head start, a postponement, I think I'll have time to find that documentation.
But at least you know when you got those jewels, right?
I don't know, Your Honor. With the oil, the gold mines, and the bribes, you just don't remember the little details.
Could you explain those jewels you're wearing today?
Are an inheritance from my Aunt Enriqueta. May she rest in peace.
Mr. Zapatero, you don't intend to run away, do you?
No, Your Honor, I swear on Chavez.
And what's that suitcase you have there?
Oh, it's just that I love collecting suitcases, Your Honor, besides jewelry, of course. Well, I think everything is clear now. Can I go already?
Of course, Mr. Zapatero, you may go, but to prison.
How come you are a far-rightist?
Oh, I wish we could see this scene, right? How happy we would be here in Venezuela and in half the world. Well, with Zapatero, you'll have to forgive me, but is justice really being served for so many things, for so many? I remember when here in Spain, he was still considered a decent man and held rallies, while here we were already criticizing him and pointing out what he had done to Venezuelans, right? But it was just a few of us. Luckily, now there are 1,000 and he's marked forever. Whether he goes to prison or not, and I hope Zapatero does, he'll end up just like Antonio says. You start wearing gold chains and you change.
No, if he takes money, he grabs it, silvers it, and kills him. What does silvers it mean?
Is he talking about the plate?
Calm down.
Calm down.
Calm down. Get out of my way. Man, shit. Okay. Sorry. Don't mess with me. Okay. Sorry.
Do you put on thick gold chains and start talking like that within 5 minutes? Is it a transformation? Well, one more. Enrique, about Sánchez and Begoña, they imagine them as two kings covered in gold, jewels, and diamonds.
We want to inform you that all these amazing jewels you see, valued at millions of euros, are simply gifts that we have received over time, during our time as President and First Lady.
Should we pay attention to a worse Pedrito? Incredible, but absolutely. How much could these two have received? Where are the gifts? Because returning them in life, well, Zapatero wouldn't either, but these guys even less. Well, the last photo of Rosa Maria. There you see Rodriguez Zapatero with his new business. Jewelers since 2025 get ready for all the inventions they'll come up with tomorrow with Rodriguez Zapatero after the... And whatever has happened in the courts today, a historic day, there are people who say it's bad news for Spain. Does it look bad to see a former president on the defendant's bench? No, don't get it wrong. What looks bad is seeing a former president next to Maduro with Cuba and doing business with the Chinese. Now that, yes, gives a bad image today, doesn't it? Today is a wonderful day in which justice and the rule of law prevail. Tomorrow, I'll tell you more about it here, all in detail. See you tomorrow.
Tú lo sabes y yo lo sé. Somos confidenciales. Tú eres confidencial. Yo soy confidencial. Todos confidenciales. Todos confidenciales. Pero solo para mentes abiertas y para gente despierta. Desde la trinchera las balas silban y no hay manera de salir allá afuera. Aquí la libertad tiene las alas de cera. Albert Castillo, Susana Gash, Tucci Castillo y demás, muchas gracias. Con esto y un bizcocho, hasta mañana a las 8.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.